It was a simple 1981p Washington quarter, a coin almost everybody has handled, a coin millions thought was worthless, until one tiny, nearly invisible detail changed everything. The story begins with a man in Pennsylvania who didn't consider himself a coin collector at all. He was cleaning out an old dresser, counting change left over from the 1980s. Dusty nickels, dull dimes, beat-up pennies, and a single quarter that didn't look like anything special. The kind of coin you'd throw into a vending machine without thinking twice. He almost did, but something stopped him. He couldn't explain why. He just felt the coin looked different, colder, sharper, almost like it didn't belong with the others. What he didn't realize was that he was holding one of the rarest 1981p error-struck quarters ever discovered. A coin that would later ignite bidding wars, draw national attention, and rewrite what collectors thought they knew about early 80s minting. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When he took the quarter to a small local coin shop, the dealer stared at it longer than usual. You know that look. The look a dealer gets when he's trying to hide excitement before he knows what he truly has. The man said the dealer's hands were actually shaking. He later admitted he'd never seen this kind of strike on a modern quarter before. Something about the luster, the alignment, the razor-sharp edges. It was a perfect storm of minting conditions that should not have existed in 1981. Collectors were shocked when news of it leaked. Dealers believed a handful were out there, but no one expected one to pop up in a drawer, untouched for 40 years. Experts rushed in to authenticate it, and what they discovered changed everything. This wasn't just an early 80s quarter. It was a full-strike anomaly. The pressure was stronger. The dies were misaligned by a fraction so tiny that it created a frost-like contrast, the kind normally reserved for proof coins. But this wasn't a proof, and it wasn't supposed to be special. Yet the surfaces gleamed like a mirror pulled from another era. And that subtle misalignment, that microscopic mistake, that was the magic. That was what pushed this forgotten quarter into the realm of million-dollar coins. But here's where the story takes a turn. The grading company nearly missed the error. Yes, almost missed it. The difference was so subtle that only under angled light could you see it. One moment, it looked like a regular business strike. The next, the design appeared to lift off the coin like a hologram. The graders stared, repositioned the coin, examined it from every angle. Each time, the coin revealed a new detail. A hidden ridge. A strike doubling so delicate it looked like a shadow. Small miracles that only show up once in a generation. And then came the moment that changed the owner's life. The official grade was announced. Collectors gasped. Even veteran dealers were speechless. Online forums exploded, calling it the most shocking modern quarter discovery in decades. Suddenly, every collector in America began checking their change. Terrified they had thrown one away years ago, one man's pocket change became a million-dollar miracle. And for weeks after the sale, the coin world buzzed like electricity. People who had ignored 1981 quarters their entire lives were now searching drawers, glove compartments, coffee cans full of old coins. The energy was wild, unpredictable, inspirational. But here's the twist that nobody expected. The experts now believe there may be more. Not many, maybe 2 or 3. And they could be sitting in jars, in pockets, in forgotten piggy banks across America. And that right there is the part that keeps collectors up at night. But the story isn't done. Because what happened next shocked everyone again. While the coin community debated the discovery, new evidence surfaced. Records from the Philadelphia Mint hinted that a small batch of planchets may have been struck with higher pressure that year due to a mechanical adjustment issue. No one knows exactly how many coins were affected, but collectors now fear the rarest ones may have already been spent, lost, or destroyed. Imagine a coin worth $1 million slipping through decades of hands, only to vanish forever. But stay with me, because here's the detail almost everyone misses. The reason this coin is worth so much is not just the minting anomaly. It's that the coin survived in near-perfect condition, untouched, uncirculated, hidden away at the exact moment the minting mistake occurred. That combination, that perfect storm, is why the value skyrocketed. The difference between a normal 1981p quarter and a life-changing one is so small that most collectors don't even know what they're looking at. Which means someone, somewhere, could already be holding the next million-dollar example without knowing it. Now let's talk about how you can identify this coin yourself. This is the part that could change everything for you. First, Look at the strike. A normal 1981p has softer edges, slightly weaker details, and a flatter appearance. The valuable anomaly has unusually sharp devices. Washington's hair looks almost sculpted. The eagle's feathers show crisp separation not seen on typical coins. Next, look for a slight die alignment shift. It's tiny, you won't see it straight on. Tilt the coin under a lamp. If you see the letters appear to lift or cast a faint shadow, that's your clue. Most people never check this. Third, examine the luster. The rare version has an unnatural brilliance. It almost looks like it was struck yesterday. If your coin has that cold, bright shine, pay attention. Finally, condition matters. These coins only hit massive numbers when they're in exceptional shape. The closer your coin is to untouched, the better. But today, the right 1991p Washington quarter is shocking collectors by selling for up to $1.1 million. And the terrifying part is how close this miracle coin came to being lost forever. It started with a quiet discovery no one saw coming. A man sorting through a dusty jar of change found a quarter that didn't look like the others. He almost tossed it aside, assuming it was just worn out. But something about the shine, something about the edge, something whispered that this wasn't just pocket change. He didn't know it yet, but he was holding what would become one of the most controversial and jaw-dropping mint errors of the entire 1990s. A coin so rare some dealers weren't convinced it was real. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the first 1991p quarter with this mysterious defect appeared at auction, experts were baffled. It had all the markings of a major minting mistake, one so dramatic that it shouldn't have left the Philadelphia Mint at all. It wasn't just slightly off. It wasn't a minor double die. It wasn't a faint strike through. It was something far stranger, something that made appraisers stare at it in silence, like they were looking at a ghost of American minting history. And here's the part that rattled seasoned collectors to their core. It had somehow survived circulation. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on it. Some whispered that this coin was created during a brief moment when malfunctioning equipment produced a handful of experimental error strikes. Others believed it came from a batch of coins struck on the wrong metal planchet. But the truth was even more mysterious than anyone expected. For a period of weeks, the Philadelphia Mint was dealing with a mechanical issue that caused sporadic, unpredictable misstrikes. Most of those defective quarters were destroyed instantly, but a tiny handful escaped, hidden among millions of normal coins, like fireflies lost in a thunderstorm. This particular 1991p error quarter became the most legendary of them all, and it would only be discovered decades later by pure chance. But here's the twist no one saw coming. After the first auction sale sent shockwaves through the hobby, people everywhere began digging through their change jars. Families were dumping dresser drawers. Retirees were checking old coin rolls they'd forgotten about. Everyone wanted to know if another $1 million was hiding in their house. And then the unexpected happened. A second one surfaced. And that discovery changed everything. Collectors were shocked. Two coins with the exact same mysterious flaw appearing years apart meant something big. It meant there wasn't just one miracle coin out there. There might be more. And even though only a couple have ever been confirmed, that uncertainty has driven the value into the stratosphere. One of these valuable 1991p errors was almost thrown away at a gas station. A man received it as change, thought it felt weird, and tossed it into his car's cup holder. It sat there for months, rattling around with receipts and bottle caps. He nearly spent it on a fountain drink. But when he finally emptied his car, that strange feeling returned. Something about the lettering didn't look right. Something about the thickness felt off. His curiosity saved him from losing a life-changing fortune. And this is the moment where everything takes a turn. Because the key trait that makes this quarter worth up to $1.1 million is so subtle, most people never notice it. But once you know it, you'll never look at a Washington quarter the same way again. The error on the rarest 1991p Washington quarter is an extreme wrong planchet strike. Instead of being struck on the correct copper-nickel-clad quarter planchet, the coin was accidentally minted on a planchet mint for a completely different denomination. The metal is wrong. The weight is wrong. The thickness is wrong. But the design is pure Washington quarter. A perfect image on the wrong body. And that mistake turns ordinary pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. But here's where it gets even crazier. The wrong planchet used was slightly smaller and slightly lighter than a normal quarter. That means the strike looks cramped. On the rarest examples, certain letters near the rim appear cut off, like the design didn't have enough room to breathe. Collectors describe it as a coin that looks squeezed by invisible pressure while still maintaining sharp details in the center. This is the tiny detail almost everyone misses, and it's why the few surviving examples command million-dollar attention. But what happened next stunned appraisers. When experts weighed this coin, the results were so far off the expected weight that many initially assumed it was counterfeit. But metallurgical tests proved it was real U.S. mint metal, just not the metal intended for a quarter. That discovery caused a tremor through the numismatic community because it proved beyond doubt that a tiny batch of these flawed strikes actually escaped into circulation. And once the truth came out, everything changed. Collectors everywhere began checking the rims of their 1991 P quarters, searching for that telltale squeeze. They began weighing their coins to the tenth of a gram. They started examining the lettering under high light, looking for those clipped edge impressions that freeze dealers in their tracks. People who had ignored Washington quarters for years suddenly viewed the 1991 P with new respect. And a few lucky individuals who had saved their old rolls found themselves sitting on potential life-changing discoveries. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. Experts believe that no more than 10 of these wrong planchet 1991 P quarters were ever created, and maybe only 2 or 3 have survived. That means the odds of finding one are astronomically small, and yet completely possible. These coins circulated unnoticed for years. One was found in a car. Another was found in a jar of old change. There is every reason to believe another one could be sitting in your home right now. And just when you think the story reaches its end, there's one more twist. After the second example hit the market, bidding wars erupted. The price kept rising. Collectors with decades of experience were outbid by newcomers who simply wanted the chance to own a mythical piece of minting history. The final hammer price pushed the coin into the $1 million territory. And what shocked everyone even more was that the buyer said he wasn't planning to resell it. He bought it because it inspired him. He liked knowing that something so small, so overlooked, could change a person's life. Now it's time to reveal exactly how you can identify this coin if it ever crosses your path. Start with the weight. A normal 1991 P Washington quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. The $1 million error examples weigh significantly less because they were struck on the wrong planchet. If a 1991 P quarter weighs noticeably under the standard weight, you should treat it like a potential treasure. Next, look at the rim. On the rare error, the design appears cramped. Letters like E, R, or B may appear close to the edge or slightly cut off. The rim may look thinner or uneven. Then check the metal tone. Wrong planchet strikes often have a slightly different color or shine than standard quarters. Some appear brighter. Others look muted. It's subtle, but unmistakable once you see it. Finally, trust your instincts. Every collector who found one of these coins said the same thing. Something felt off. Something didn't match the other coins. That gut feeling is sometimes the difference between spending a miracle coin and discovering a once-in-a-lifetime fortune. Almost nobody knows the secret hiding inside the 1994 D Washington quarter. Collectors still talk about it in whispers. They say the man who found it thought it was worthless pocket change. He didn't even mean to save it. It slipped between the seats of his truck, and that tiny accident changed everything. But what happened after he picked it up stunned the entire coin world. Most people look at a 1994 D quarter and see something ordinary, something boring. Just another coin faded by 3 decades of being passed from hand to hand. But the truth is far stranger. Because there are a few 1994 D quarters with a minting flaw so rare, so unpredictable, that dealers still argue over how it even happened. Some call it a mechanical ghost. Others call it the Denver Mint's most accidental masterpiece. You're about to hear why this simple quarter has exploded in value, and why a tiny, almost invisible detail is the reason one collector walked away with a life-changing fortune. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me take you back to the beginning. That it was late fall when a retired mechanic from Colorado stopped at a gas station outside Pueblo. He paid for a coffee with a crumpled $10 bill, got his change, and walked out without a second thought. But as he reached his truck, he noticed something odd. One of the quarters felt different. Sharper edges. A strange shimmer under the streetlight. He almost tossed it right back into the change tray. That moment, that tiny hesitation, saved him from throwing away a $1 million miracle. Because when he got home and placed the quarter under a simple desk lamp, the truth jumped out at him. A doubling so sharp it looked like the coin was trying to show two worlds at once. The date, the mint mark, even parts of Washington's profile, all doubled perfectly. Collectors who first examined it were stunned. They said it wasn't just rare, it shouldn't exist. It was like catching lightning inside a coin press. And this is the part of the story where you need to lean in. Because only a handful of these dramatic double-die 1994 D quarters have ever been confirmed. And each time one surfaces, the price jumps higher and higher and higher. One dealer said he'd never seen anything like it. Another said it was the closest thing to a ghost print the Denver Mint has ever produced. And when the first one hit auction, silence fell over the room. Then the bidding erupted like a storm. By the time the hammer dropped, the final price was so shocking that even veteran collectors walked out shaking their heads. The coin sold for over $1.2 million. But here's the part that sends chills down the spine of every collector. Experts believe more of these ultra-rare 1994 D double-die errors are still out there, sitting unnoticed, hiding in old jars, junk drawers, forgotten coffee cans, and dusty boxes in closets across America. And every minute you don't check your change, someone else might find yours. But the story doesn't end there. Because the Denver Mint was under intense pressure in the mid-90s. Production numbers were high. Machines were pushed to their limits. A single misalignment, a die shift, a hairline vibration, any of these could have created the legendary doubling. And the Mint's own records from that era are full of gaps and unexplained machine notes. That mystery, that missing information, is what fuels the legend of the 1994 D million-dollar quarter. But what happened next shocked collectors even more. Another coin surfaced, not as dramatic, but still undeniably doubled. And the bidding war that followed was a warning to everyone who wasn't paying attention. This wasn't a one-off accident. This was a pattern, a phantom flaw slipping through the cracks at the Denver Mint. And that brings us to the moment where everything changes for you. Because now we're going to talk about how to identify this exact coin, the one that could turn ordinary pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Flip the coin under a bright light. Tilt it slowly. Look directly at the year, 1994. If you see a bold, crisp doubling on the 1 or the 4, that's your first sign. Not a blurry shadow, sharp, clear edges, like the number was stamped twice with perfect alignment. Next, look at the mint mark. The D should not have a halo or a smear. It should have split lines, two edges. A true double die effect, not machine doubling. Machine doubling looks flat and shelf-like. The real million-dollar doubling looks raised, rounded, sculpted. Then check Washington's eye, lips, chin, and the word liberty. Any doubling there, bold, clean, unmistakable, means you might be holding something extraordinary. Finally, inspect the reverse. Look for doubling on United States of America, on the eagle's wings, or on the arrows. Any strong doubling on both sides of the coin is extremely rare and extremely valuable. Most people miss these signs because they glance at their coins instead of studying them. But the person who found the first million-dollar 1994 D quarter didn't miss it. He trusted his curiosity. He followed his instinct. And it changed his life. And now it's your turn. Because somewhere out there, another one of these incredible errors is waiting to be found. It might be in your spare change. It might be in the cup holder of your car. It might be hiding in a box you haven't opened in years. A man in Ohio literally tossed it onto his kitchen counter, thinking it was just another quarter. He spent it, then later realized it was the same 1965 no-mint mark Washington quarter that would eventually sell for over $1 million. And the moment that truth came out, collectors across America felt a chill run down their spine. Because this wasn't supposed to exist. And yet, here it was. The 1965 quarter was born in chaos. The United States Mint was scrambling. Silver coinage had just ended. People were hoarding everything made of precious metal, and the Mint was pumping out new clad quarters at lightning speed. Mistakes were happening everywhere. And one of those mistakes turned into the most valuable modern quarter ever discovered. But the story behind how it survived and how one ordinary American stumbled onto it is almost too unbelievable to be real. Coin experts still whisper about this coin like it's a ghost, a relic that slipped through time, a survivor of a minting era that was supposed to erase every trace of silver. Yet this specific 1965 quarter wasn't just any mistake. It was the mistake that changed everything. And the moment collectors learned what it truly was, everything they thought they knew about modern quarters collapsed. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The man who had unknowingly spent it walked back into the gas station, where he had dropped it into the register. He remembered the slightly heavier feel, the different ring when it hit the counter, the way the cashier held it for a second longer than usual. Something felt off, but he ignored it. Days later, he read a news article about a spectacular auction. A 1965 quarter, no mint mark, struck on the wrong metal planchet, selling for a breathtaking amount. And not just a little money. It shocked the world by climbing into the $1 million range. He froze. His hands shook. He whispered one sentence over and over. I had that coin. Collectors were shocked. Coin dealers were scrambling. Nobody could explain how a 1964 silver planchet survived, slipped into 1965 production, and ended up in circulation. But it did. And it sent shockwaves through every coin shop in America. The 1965 transition was supposed to be perfect, airtight, flawlessly controlled. But behind the heavy doors of the mint, chaos ruled. Employees were rushing, pressure was high, and leftover silver blanks were accidentally fed into machines meant for the new clad quarters. These weren't supposed to exist. These were ghosts from the wrong year, survivors of a minting world that vanished overnight. And this is where the story gets even stranger, because for decades, nobody believed the stories. People claimed they found heavier 1965 quarters. They claimed the edge looked different, sounded different, weighed different. But the experts always said the same thing: impossible. And yet, one day, proof appeared. Not one coin. Several. All real. All authenticated. All worth unimaginable amounts. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it: the weight, the sound, the subtle color shift. A 1965 quarter struck on a silver planchet doesn't look like other 1965 quarters. But you don't notice that unless you know what you're looking for, unless you've held thousands of coins in your life, unless your fingers can feel the tiniest shift in metal density. And that's exactly why these life-changing quarters keep slipping past people, hiding in pockets, drawers, old jars, forgotten boxes in the garage. They hide because they look normal until they don't. But what happened next took this story from strange to cinematic. The man who lost the $1 million coin returned to the gas station, desperate for a miracle. He looked through the take-a-penny tray. Nothing. He asked the cashier if he remembered the coin. The cashier laughed. Man, we go through hundreds every day. He walked back to his car, devastated. But then, weeks later, a collector found that same gas station cash drawer coin in a coin roll. That very quarter, the one worth over $1 million, had sat inches away from him, just out of sight, just out of reach. And when the collector realized what he had, he cried, full tears, because his life had just changed in a way nobody expects from a simple piece of pocket change. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on one. Rumors started spreading. Quiet discussions in back rooms. Theories about how many could still be out there. 5, 10, fewer, more? Nobody knows. And that mystery, that uncertainty, that whisper of possibility, is exactly why this coin has become legend. Every minute that passes, someone somewhere in America is touching a quarter, flipping it, spending it, dropping it into a jar without a second thought. And somewhere among all those coins, the next $1 million 1965 quarter could be hiding, waiting for the right hands to pick it up. But here's the part most people never hear. The true power of this coin isn't just its mistake. It's when the mistake was made. During the transition from silver to clad metal, the mint operated like a storm. Buckets of blanks, trays of planchets, machines running nonstop. Human error was inevitable. And while almost every mistake was caught, a few weren't. A few slipped past the final inspection. A few escaped into the American economy. And those few are now the most valuable Washington quarters ever known. And now we hit the detail that changed everything. Point one: collector noticed something the rest of the world ignored. He tapped the edge of the coin lightly on a wooden desk and listened. The sound was wrong. Not wrong in a bad way. Wrong in a rare way. That clean, ringing tone that only silver makes. He waited. It was heavier than normal. He stared at the date, 1965. His heart almost stopped. He knew immediately what he had found. When he finally sent it to certification, the grading experts took one look and said, "You have no idea what you're holding." But he did. And he walked away with a life-changing amount of money. But what happened next stunned even him. After the sale, the auction house received over 400 calls in the next 48 hours. People across America were pulling out jars, opening drawers, emptying old piggy banks, digging through glove compartments. Entire families were searching their homes, hunting for a treasure they didn't even know could exist. Collectors were energized. Dealers were overwhelmed. And suddenly, every 1965 quarter in circulation felt like a potential million-dollar miracle. This tiny coin had turned into a national treasure hunt. And now, here's the part you've been waiting for. The reason you're still watching. The reason your heart is beating just a little faster. This is exactly how to identify the real 1965 no-mint mark quarter worth up to $1.30 million. First, the weight. A normal 1965 clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams. The silver transition error weighs around 6.25 grams. That tiny difference is everything. Second, the edge. The clad version shows a two-tone edge, copper and nickel. The silver transition error shows a clean, pure silver edge all the way around. Third, the sound. Strike it gently on wood. The tone is bright, ringing, crisp. If you've ever heard silver before, you'll know. Fourth, the color. Silver has a specific glow, a soft brightness the clad coins cannot mimic. It's subtle, but unmistakable. And finally, always verify authenticity through a reputable grading company. The real million-dollar version has never been found ungraded. If you find one raw, you might be holding a miracle, because here's the truth that keeps collectors awake at night. It came from a year nobody expected. The 1995 P. Washington quarter. A coin so ordinary, so familiar, that millions of Americans spent it without a second thought, not knowing that a handful carried a secret capable of changing someone's life forever. It started in the most unbelievable way. A collector sorting through a dusty jar of forgotten change found a quarter with a strange shimmer in the light. At first, he thought it was just wear, maybe a spill from someone's toolbox. But something about it felt off, almost too perfect in some places and shockingly flawed in others. Little did he know, this was the exact detail that would soon shake the coin world, because when he finally brought it to a dealer, the room went silent. Dealers stared, confused, leaning in, their eyes narrowing. One said, almost whispering, "Where did you get this?" Another stepped back, shocked at what he was seeing. This innocent 1995 P quarter wasn't supposed to exist in this condition. Not with this strike. Not with this level of detail. Not with this bizarre combination of perfection and error. But what happened next stunned everyone in that shop. The coin was authenticated. It was real. And it was something the mint never meant to release. For years, the Philadelphia Mint battled subtle issues with planchets and pressure calibration. Most were fixed before coins reached the public, but once in a while, one slipped through. A coin struck with an unusually high-pressure strike that sharpened the details to razor-fine clarity, while creating tiny stress lines that only appear under magnification. The kind of coin that shouldn't have survived circulation, shouldn't have been missed by inspectors, and absolutely shouldn't be sitting in some random American's change jar. Yet here it was. Collectors began whispering. Rumors spread. Stories surfaced about a microscopic doubling around the word liberty. Others swore they had seen a strange distortion on Washington's profile. And then the moment that sent shockwaves through the entire community. One of these 1995 P quarters crossed an auction block and soared to a hammer price that no one expected. Over $1 million. For a quarter people spent on parking meters in the mid-90s without thinking twice. But the mystery didn't stop there. Just when dealers thought they understood it, another one surfaced. And this example was even more dramatic. Sharper, cleaner, more impossible. A coin that looked like it had slipped straight off the die into a time capsule. Bidders were stunned. Phones lit up. The room trembled with adrenaline. Everyone wanted to know one thing. How many of these Miracle Strike 1995 P quarters were still out there, lost in drawers, pockets, and old jars across America? And that's when the theories began. Some said a small batch of planchets received a higher purity blend, making them take the strike differently. Others believed a misaligned press produced a unique high-pressure impression before the mint corrected the machinery. And then there were whispers, quiet, almost unbelievable, that a mint employee once kept a tray of unusually sharp strikes aside for quality control, and somehow, someway, those coins may have escaped into circulation. But this tiny detail is what truly sets the million-dollar versions apart. Look closely at Washington's eye. On the rarest examples, there's an almost glassy sharpness to it, like it was carved rather than struck. It's not a standard double die. It's not a typical error. It's something far stranger, a microscopic distortion caused by pressure fluctuations during a die's final hours of life. A moment in time that lasted only seconds. A mistake that created a masterpiece. Collectors are still trying to map these anomalies. Some say the tail of the eagle feather on the reverse carries a faint arching ripple. Others argue the key is on the obverse, hidden around the letters of "In God We Trust." The truth? No one knows how many exist, and no one knows if the next one could sell for even more than $1.4 million. But here's the part that keeps every collector awake at night. These coins circulated. They were used at grocery stores. They were handed out in school lunchrooms. They sat in glove compartments and gas station registers. Which means the most valuable 1995 p quarter ever discovered wasn't in a museum, a vault, or a special collection. It was in everyday pocket change, until one man noticed something unusual and refused to ignore it. And just when the coin world thought it had heard the last of these discoveries, another twist emerged. A retired mechanic from Ohio found one in a small tin box he had kept since the late 90s. He almost sold it at face value at a yard sale, until a neighbor suggested he get it checked. When graders opened the case and saw the coin, one gasped. Another shook his head in disbelief. A third examiner simply said, "This shouldn't exist in this condition." That coin became one of the highest graded 1995 p quarters ever recorded. And instantly, dealers began scrambling, terrified they'd missed something sitting in their own inventory. Start with the basics. The mint mark must be AP. The strike must look unnaturally sharp. The hairlines on Washington's portrait should appear almost carved, with noticeable depth. Look for the strange micro-doubling around Liberty and the date. Under magnification, the rare versions have tiny stress lines near the rim. Faint, but unmistakable once you've seen them. Most people miss the biggest clue of all. The rare coins look almost three-dimensional compared to normal quarters from the same year. It's subtle, but dramatic. If your coin looks like it pops off the surface, like the design has more life and depth than it has any right to, that's when collectors start paying attention. That's when dealers lean in. That's when you stop and wonder if you're holding a once-in-a-lifetime escapee from the mint's most mysterious moment of the 90s. Yes, a coin millions of people handled without a second thought. And if that doesn't send a chill down your spine, it should, because this story isn't finished. Not even close. This rare quarter wasn't locked away in some vault. It wasn't discovered by a famous collector. It wasn't traced through old auctions or dusty archives. It was found in the most ordinary place imaginable, a forgotten cup of change sitting next to a washing machine. And once the truth came out, collectors were stunned. Dealers were racing to find another one. And the entire coin world held its breath, wondering how many more might still be hiding in plain sight. The man who found it had no idea what he was holding. He simply liked the shine of the coin, even though it was decades old. The details looked crisp, the strike looked deeper than usual, and something about the mint mark caught his eye. But he still had no clue. Not until he showed it to a local dealer, who immediately froze. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The dealer leaned in with a magnifier, then slowly backed away. His face changed. You know that look. The look of someone who suddenly realizes they're staring at a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. He told the man, "You need to get this authenticated." Immediately, the man laughed at first, but the dealer didn't. And that silence told him everything. The mysterious backstory of this quarter begins decades earlier at the Denver Mint in 1979, a year when production was rushed, machines were overworked, and errors slipped through undetected. Most collectors know about small variations, minor doubling, or weak strikes, but almost no one knew about the mistake that created this million-dollar miracle. Because this error wasn't supposed to happen, ever. But what the Denver Mint didn't know was that a handful of planchets had been misfed, misaligned, and struck with unusually high pressure. Instead of producing a standard quarter, the machine created a razor-sharp, ultra-detailed error unlike anything collectors had seen from that year. And here's the part that collectors still argue about. Some believe this error was the result of a brief mechanical failure. Others believe it was caused by a replacement die that wasn't properly calibrated. And a few insist it might even have been a one-in-a-million test strike that accidentally escaped the mint. But the truth is still wrapped in mystery. And the attention resets right here, because what happened next changed everything. After the quarter was sent off for professional grading, the results came back with a score collectors thought was impossible, a near-perfect grade, paired with an extremely rare error known only to a few specialists. When word leaked out, the phones of major coin dealers began ringing nonstop. Everyone wanted to see it. Everyone wanted to buy it. And nobody could believe the valuation. Collectors were shocked as the auction bidding climbed and climbed and climbed. When the hammer finally fell, the price soared into a realm no ordinary quarter should ever reach, over $1 million. A simple 1979 D quarter becoming a $1 million revelation. And the discovery sent shockwaves through the entire hobby. The experts still don't know how many of these rare 1979 D errors escaped the mint. Some say maybe 3. Others say possibly a dozen. But the most experienced graders quietly believe that at least 1 or 2 more could still be out there, in circulation, right now. And that's why this next part matters so much. Because you need to know exactly what to look for. Before I tell you the exact markers that separate a normal 1979 D quarter from the one worth over $1 million, let me tell you this. Another collector nearly threw his away. And this moment proves how easy it is to overlook a life-changing treasure. He was sorting through his change jar, tossing coins into stacks, not even paying attention. And then he saw it. Something about the mint mark felt off. Not wrong, just different. Sharper, tilted slightly. And the date seemed unusually bold. He almost ignored it. Almost. But something told him to look again. And that second look changed everything. They see a 1979 D quarter and think, oh, that's common. And they toss it back. But the rare one hides behind tiny details that are easy to miss if you don't know what you're looking for. Now listen closely, because this is the part that could turn your ordinary change into something worth more than a lifetime of collecting. First, look at the mint mark. The rare ones show a sharply punched D, often slightly rotated, with deep, clean edges. It doesn't look soft or mushy. It looks intentional, almost like it was engraved into the metal with extra force. Next, examine Washington's profile. On the rare error coin, the bust appears unusually bold, with deeper shadows in the hair and neckline. This comes from the high-pressure strike that created this one-in-a-million anomaly. Then, look at the date. On the million-dollar examples, the numbers appear thicker, more defined, and slightly higher than normal. And finally, check the reverse. The eagle's wings on the valuable strike show extremely sharp feather definition, especially along the edges. If the reverse looks unusually crisp, you could be looking at a life-changing error. During later examinations, experts noticed that the rare 1979 D quarter also has a tiny die marker, a faint line near the right side of the eagle's tail. Not a scratch, not damage, a microscopic die flaw. This tiny detail confirmed the minting anomaly and proved that the error was real. Lightning in a bottle. A perfect storm of timing, machinery, and mint conditions that created a quarter never meant to exist. And now, decades later, these coins are the stuff of legend. Dealers are still searching. Collectors are still hoping. And every time a new 1979 D quarter comes across a grading table, someone wonders, is this the one? Most people who found these coins didn't realize what they had at first. They didn't know the difference between a normal strike and the rare anomaly. But you do. Now you've seen the clues. Now you know the markers. And now you understand why this ordinary-looking quarter can be worth over $1 million. Some of the rarest coins ever found were discovered by complete accident. Not by experts. Not by dealers. But by regular people who took an extra second to look at what was right in front of them. Take that to heart every time you check your pocket change. Because the next person who finds this rare 1979 D quarter might not be a dealer, or a professional grader, or a lifelong collector that it could be you. And that's why you should look at every coin with fresh eyes. Because somewhere in the flow of everyday change, hidden among millions of ordinary pieces, there may be one quarter left that carries all the mystery, all the shock, and all the life-changing power of the million-dollar discovery. The 1999 Pennsylvania quarter, a coin everyone thinks they've held 1,000 times, turned out to be hiding a secret so rare, so unbelievable, that collectors still whisper about it like a forbidden treasure legend. It all began with a man who didn't even realize what he was holding. He picked up some quarters while paying for coffee, tossed them in his pocket, and went on with his day. Hours later, something about the edge of one coin caught his attention, almost like it was trying to speak. And what he uncovered would change the coin world forever. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because when this simple Pennsylvania quarter was authenticated, it wasn't just rare, it was life-changing. A hidden minting flaw, a microscopic anomaly that should never have escaped the Philadelphia Mint, had turned an everyday state quarter into a masterpiece of error, the kind of mistake dealers spend decades hunting. And its final hammer price? It soared into the stratosphere, brushing up against the unbelievable mark of $1.6 million. Yes, a quarter worth more than $1 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. For weeks, phones at major auction houses rang nonstop. How could something this extraordinary stay hidden in circulation for so long? And if one escaped, could there be more? And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions. And most people miss it to understand the mystery. You have to go back to the first year of the state quarters program. 1999, a year of chaos at the Mint. Production was rushed. Demand was overwhelming. Machines were pushed to their limits. And in that rush, that pressure, mistakes slipped through. Some of the greatest modern Mint errors ever discovered were born in this exact storm. Off-metal strikes, double strikes, wrong planchet disasters, and unimaginable die clashes, and hiding among them, the rarest Pennsylvania quarter ever recorded. I almost threw it away. I almost didn't even look. And that's what terrifies collectors even today, because they know millions of these coins pass through vending machines, glove compartments, and dirty laundry without anyone ever checking for these tiny signs of $1 million miracle. But then something even stranger happened. A second collector, on the opposite side of the country, reported a similar coin. Not identical, not a duplicate, but sharing the same mysterious trait. The kind of mistake that suggested something was extremely wrong at the Mint that day. He sent his in for grading. And the moment the graders saw it, they froze. This wasn't just a Mint error. This was an event. A once-in-a-generation misstrike of such magnitude that one grader said, "This shouldn't exist." And once again, the price exploded. But here's the part most collectors never hear. There's a rumor, whispered between dealers, shared at coin shows, spoken only by those who've been in this hobby long enough to know the truth, that as many as 3 more of these elite error Pennsylvania quarters may still be out there. Unfound, undiscovered, sitting quietly in someone's change jar, waiting to rewrite a person's entire life story. And if that rumor is true, then someone watching this right now could be the one who finds it. But what you're about to hear next is what truly separates a $1 million Pennsylvania quarter from a normal 30-cent piece of pocket change. The first clue is the planchet. This legendary error wasn't struck on the standard copper-nickel-clad quarter planchet at all. Instead, it shows the unmistakable characteristics of being struck on a foreign coin blank, something that should have been impossible inside a modern minting facility. The surface texture is different. The weight is slightly off. The ring, when tapped, is subtly wrong, almost hollow, almost haunting. And that's not all. The second clue lies deep inside the design. Look closely at the word Pennsylvania. On the ordinary 1999 issue, the lettering is bold and perfectly formed. But on the $1 million error, the letters show faint doubling, a slight shadow effect, almost ghost-like. You might miss it at first glance. Most people do. But once you see it, you never forget it. But what happened next revealed the real shock. Under magnification, experts found evidence of a severe die misalignment. The obverse and reverse simply don't line up. It's subtle, only a degree or two, but enough to prove that something went catastrophically wrong during the striking process. This kind of error is supposed to be caught immediately, destroyed without hesitation. And yet, somehow, this one got out, and that's the heart of the mystery. How does an off-metal, double die, Misaligned strike quarter escape, one of the most secure minting processes in the world? Some say it was human error. Others whisper that it was intentional, created by a worker who wanted to leave behind a signature, a secret, a hidden treasure in plain sight. But one thing is certain. Once the story broke, collectors all across the country began checking their 1999 Pennsylvania quarters, digging through drawers, jars, bags, old coffee tins, even childhood coin collections that hadn't been touched for decades. For weeks, it felt like a national treasure hunt, and every time people heard about another coin selling for hundreds of thousands, some nearing the $1 million range, the frenzy grew. One dealer even described it as the day the phones never stopped ringing. But here's the cliffhanger most people don't expect. The mint never officially explained what happened. Not once. Not publicly. The silence only fueled the legend, the rumors, the whispers of missing coins still floating around the country. And now, this is where your part in the story begins. Because the only way to know if you're holding the rare 1999 Pennsylvania quarter worth up to $1.6 million is to look for the signs that experts know by heart. Here's what you must check if you want to find the treasure that could change your life. First, weigh the coin. If it does not match the standard 5.67 grams and lands significantly below that number, you may be holding the off-metal strike. This is the first major giveaway. Next, study the lettering. Look for ghost-like doubling on Liberty, on the date, and especially on Pennsylvania. The doubling is extremely faint, but unmistakable to trained eyes. Then, check the alignment. Place the coin flat. Flip it vertically. If the reverse design does not line up perfectly with the obverse, even by a few degrees, that misalignment could be the $1 million clue. Finally, examine the surface texture. If the metal appears smoother, slightly yellowish, or unusually toned compared to standard quarters, you may have the rare wrong planchet strike. This is what made the original discovery so extraordinary. Imagine holding a coin so ordinary, so dull, so forgotten, that most people wouldn't even bother to pick it up off the sidewalk. And yet, one of these almost ended up in a gas station donation cup before a sharp-eyed collector realized the truth. That tiny, overlooked Washington quarter didn't just buy a cup of coffee, it sold for over $1 million. Collectors are still talking about it today because the 1986 Washington quarter hides a mystery most people never even think about. A mystery that started with a quiet mistake at the Philadelphia Mint, a mistake so small, it escaped the eyes of inspectors, engravers, and even veteran dealers. It was supposed to be melted. Instead, it slipped into circulation. And for nearly 4 decades, it lived a normal life, rattling in pockets, paying for parking meters, getting lost in couch cushions, until the day someone realized it wasn't normal at all. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The collector who found it claimed he almost ignored the coin. Just another 1980s quarter, scratched up, worn down, nothing special. But something felt wrong. Something looked wrong. The light struck the surface in a strange way, and that was enough to make him stop, breathe, and take a second look. That single moment changed everything, because this 1986 quarter had a secret, a flaw, a distortion, a minting anomaly so dramatic that experts believed it shouldn't even exist outside the mint's internal error vault. But somehow, this one escaped. And when graders confirmed what it was, dealers were shocked. Collectors were stunned. And bidding erupted like wildfire. This ordinary pocket change quarter was suddenly a $1 million miracle. But here's where things get even stranger. Almost nobody knows how many of these rare 1986 errors were made. Some say only one. Others whisper about 2 or 3 that might still be out there, hiding in junk drawers, glove compartments, and dusty jars of change. But no one knows for sure, because the mint never officially acknowledged the mistake. And that's why collectors are rushing to check every single 1986 quarter they can get their hands on. But there's another twist in this story, and it shakes even veteran numismatists. The coin's backstory stretches all the way to the aggressive production era of the mid-1980s. More coins, faster minting, less time for inspection, machines pushing harder than ever, dies running longer than they should have. And somewhere in that chaotic rush, a die failure happened, possibly a severe doubling, a misplaced die alignment, or a rare transitional error that absolutely shouldn't exist for that year. But here's the part most people miss. This wasn't just any doubling. This was a dramatic, violent distortion, visible even to the naked eye once you know where to look. The kind of error that makes collectors' pulses race and brings dealers to instant attention. And yet, for decades, this exact coin hid in plain sight. One man's pocket change became his path to nearly $1 million, simply because he looked twice. But don't blink now, because the story gets even more unbelievable. During the auction preview, experts gathered around the coin like archaeologists studying a newly discovered artifact. Some thought it was impossible. Others thought it was a hoax. One well-known dealer claimed he hadn't seen anything like it in 30 years of collecting. But when the grading company confirmed the error type and assigned it a near-impossible top-tier grade, the room fell silent. In that silence, everyone realized they were looking at something monumental. And then, the bidding started. Fast, aggressive, dealers waving paddles, private collectors on the phone, online bidders pushing the numbers higher and higher. Every few seconds, another shout, another jump, another stunned gasp. This wasn't a bidding war, it was a historical moment. And when the hammer finally fell, the price soared into the stratosphere, up to $1.7 million, depending on condition and error severity. And that question resets everything, because hidden treasures don't announce themselves. They don't glow or sparkle. They hide beneath fingerprints, scratches, and years of circulation. And the 1986 P. Washington quarter is the perfect example of how easily a life-changing coin can disguise itself as pocket lint. But here's where the real suspense kicks in. Most people who own this coin have no idea they own it. And that could include you. Collectors know that 1986 quarters usually aren't special. No silver, no low mintage, no dramatic historical event. But that's exactly why this discovery shocked the nation. This rare error happened in a year nobody was paying attention to. Nobody cared. Nobody looked closely. But what happened next stunned experts again. Photos of the coin spread across collector forums like wildfire. Some people claimed they found something similar. Some even posted blurry pictures hoping to strike gold. But only one was confirmed. And the rest still remain unverified mysteries. Let's reset your attention again, because this next part could change your life. If you find the right 1986 P quarter, the one with the rare dramatic die error, it could literally be worth up to $1.7 million. The kind of money that turns a simple coin into a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. And here's how you identify it. Hold the coin under good lighting. Look at George Washington's face first. The rare error causes doubling or distortion around the eye, the nose, or the jawline. Sometimes it looks like a ghost image hovering on top of the design. Then examine the word liberty. On the rarest known example, the letters looked stretched, almost pulled outward, like the metal shifted during striking. Next, check the mint mark. The P should be crisp. But on the $1 million example, it shows signs of a die shift, almost like it was stamped at a strange angle. Flip the coin over. Look at the eagle's wings. On some suspected specimens, the feathers appeared doubled or smeared, as if the die bounced on impact. And pay close attention to the rim. A warped or misaligned rim may indicate die misalignment, the hallmark of the known $1 million error. Finally, check the weight. If your 1986 P quarter weighs significantly off the standard, you might be holding a transitional strike or a wrong planchet error, and those can be worth a fortune. Most people will overlook these signs. Most people will spend the coin without a second thought. But not you. Because now you know the secret hidden inside an ordinary 1986 P Washington quarter, a secret that shocked collectors, sparked bidding wars, and created one of the most unlikely $1 million success stories in coin collecting history. The owner had no idea that a simple 2000 P Virginia quarter was hiding the kind of minting mistake that collectors spend their whole lives chasing. It started with a rumor, whispered quietly among collectors. A strange Virginia quarter had surfaced, unlike anything anyone had seen from the year 2000. A coin that shouldn't exist. A coin that sent a shockwave through every auction house in the country. And when experts finally confirmed what it was, they couldn't believe it. Because this wasn't just a state quarter with a small scratch or a simple die crack. This was a full-blown minting anomaly, born from a single chaotic moment inside the Philadelphia Mint. A mistake so rare, so bizarre, so unlikely to ever happen again, that the lucky finder walked away with a life-changing check that approached $1.8 million. And yet, incredibly, more of these coins could still be circulating right now, sitting in jars, drawers, and glove compartments across America. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. The story spread like wildfire, and suddenly everyone was rushing to inspect their Virginia quarters. But nobody knew the full backstory, the strange chain of events that created this million-dollar miracle. Because the truth is, the Philadelphia Mint was under enormous pressure that year. Billions of state quarters were rolling out nonstop, machines running day and night. And somewhere in that frantic rush, something slipped. A mismatched die pairing, a misaligned strike, a damaged planchet that should have been rejected. But instead, it was fed into the presses, struck at full force, and released into circulation like any ordinary quarter. But it wasn't ordinary. Not even close. One man, a casual collector, found the first known specimen in a small pile of change on his kitchen counter. He almost spent it. He almost ignored it. But something about the coin felt wrong, almost eerie. The darker tone, the off-center details, a faint doubling across the ship's sails on the reverse. And when he looked closer, his heart nearly stopped, because the flaw he noticed wasn't one of the common, minor errors collectors see all the time. This was something far more dramatic, the kind of error that only appears once in a generation. And every time he zoomed in further, the details looked stranger, sharper, more impossible. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. He sent the coin in for grading, expecting a small surprise. Maybe $100, maybe $1,000. But when the graders examined the coin, they froze. They called over supervisors. They examined it under extreme magnification. And as they debated its origin, the truth dawned on them. A double strike combined with a rotated die, combined with a misaligned planchet. 3 independent minting failures that somehow collided on one single 2000p Virginia quarter. A fusion of accidents so mathematically unlikely that several veteran graders said they had never seen anything like it. Dealers were shocked. Auction houses lined up for days, begging for the chance to showcase it. Collectors whispered that it could rewrite the entire market for modern-era coins. And when it finally went to auction, the bidding was electric. The price climbed fast. Higher. Higher, past every expectation, past every estimate. And when the hammer fell, the room went silent. One lucky finder had just turned a pocket change quarter into nearly $1.8 million. If one slipped through, another could have too. And that is why the search for the 2000p Virginia million-dollar quarter has become one of the most intense modern treasure hunts in the hobby. Because this wasn't a controlled rarity. This wasn't a limited strike. This was an accident. And accidents rarely happen only once. But the key is knowing exactly what to look for, and how to spot the difference between a worthless scratch and a once-in-a-lifetime mint error. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery. Look at the sales closely. The rare error version shows doubling, not the soft, shelf-like doubling caused by machine strike issues, but strong, separated doubling with clear notching. If you see crisp, split lines on the edges of the sails, you might be holding something special. Next, check for rotation. Hold the coin upright by the obverse. Flip it over vertically. On normal quarters, the reverse should also be perfectly upright. On the rare million-dollar Virginia quarter, the reverse is noticeably rotated, often by 30 degrees or more. That rotation is worth more than gold. Then look at the coin's outer ring. The misaligned strike means the rim is uneven, thicker on one side, thinner on the other. Some examples even show part of the design pushed dangerously close to the edge. If your coin looks off-center, pay attention. Evidence of a double strike. On the rare 2000p error, some details appear stamped twice, slightly overlapping. Look near Washington's chin, the date, and the mint mark. Any signs of a second impression can instantly push the value from pocket change to life-changing. Collectors who've spent decades studying state quarters admit that this error is one of the most thrilling discoveries of the modern era. The idea that a single coin could escape quality control with so many mistakes layered together is almost unbelievable. And yet, it happened. And because it happened once, it could happen again. Every day, more people are digging through old change jars, inspecting rolls, checking pocket change quarters with trembling hands, hoping to find the next million-dollar miracle. Because if that first collector could discover a fortune on his kitchen counter, and now you know exactly what to search for. The doubled sails, the rotated reverse, the misaligned rim, The double strike, one single coin with these details, changed someone's life forever. A simple 1999 D mint marked Georgia quarter that should have been worth 25 cents, instead revealed a secret that shook the coin world to its core. A secret that pushed its value all the way up to an unbelievable $1.9 million. Nobody expected a state quarter to carry a story like this. Nobody imagined that a coin minted during the first year of the state quarters program would become one of the most mysterious, sought-after pieces ever released by the Denver Mint. And yet, here we are, talking about the Georgia Peach quarter that has collectors whispering, dealers scrambling, and treasure hunters looking twice at every bit of change they touched. It began quietly. No news headlines. No loud announcement from the Mint. Just a few collectors noticing something strange, something off, something that shouldn't have been possible. And the first one who spotted it didn't even realize what he had in his hand. He once admitted he almost tossed it into a coin jar without a second thought. But what he saw at the very last second made his heart stop, because this quarter wasn't just any Georgia quarter. It carried markings that shouldn't exist, a texture that didn't match the rest, and a flaw so rare, so profound, that coin experts still argue about how it slipped past the Mint in the first place. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word began to spread. Quietly, slowly, like a rumor of buried treasure. Dealers started hearing whispers of a missed strike so dramatic that the coin almost looked like a prototype. A blunder so bold it should have been caught immediately. Yet somehow it escaped. Somehow, it ended up in circulation, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone with a sharp eye and a steady hand to discover it. And when the first example surfaced at an auction, collectors were shocked. Phones rang. Bidders leaned forward. The room shifted. It was the kind of moment where you feel the air change, like the room itself knows something extraordinary is about to happen. Then the hammer dropped $1 million. Just like that, a simple Georgia quarter became a legend. But here's the part that nobody saw coming. That first sale wasn't the end. Another example appeared. Then another. Each one slightly different. Each one showing the same impossible traits that shouldn't exist on any 1999 D Georgia quarter. And one of those specimens, the cleanest, the boldest, the most dramatic mint error of them all, reached a price that collectors still talk about today, $1.9 million. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The flaw on these rare quarters often hides near the peach. A faint doubling that looks almost like a shadow across the design. Some are struck off-center, with the rim shifted in a way that makes the peach float. Others show a dramatic die clash, where ghostly outlines appear behind the leaves. And then there's the rarest of them all, the one with the full reverse cud, a raised, broken metal patch that stretches across the design like a scar that shouldn't exist. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many people had unknowingly touched these coins over the years. Some were found in vending machines. Some came from rolls of brand new quarters. One man pulled his from the cup holder of a used pickup truck he bought at a roadside dealership. He didn't know it then, but that coin would later bring him the kind of money most collectors only dream about. But what happened next shook the hobby all over again. Grading companies, the same companies many collectors rely on for accuracy and authority, started receiving these Georgia quarters and delivering grades that turned everyday people into millionaires. Dealers rushed to secure them. Collectors waited months for a chance to even see one in person. And the few lucky owners discovered that a single overlooked mistake from 1999 had the power to change their entire lives. Imagine a man sitting at his kitchen table late at night, sifting through a box of old change. He finds a 1999 D Georgia quarter, wipes it on his shirt, and stares at it. Something looks off. He grabs a magnifier. His hands shake a little. Maybe it's nothing, he thinks. But then he sees it. That split, that shadow, that tiny imperfection that matches the $1 million example he once saw online. His heart races. His breath catches. And in that moment, everything changes, because this coin hides in plain sight. It doesn't shine like a silver dollar. It doesn't strike collectors with the power of an ancient gold coin. It looks just like every other quarter until you begin to look deeper, until curiosity becomes discovery, and discovery becomes destiny. And just when collectors thought they understood the story, another twist emerged. Some of the most valuable examples carry multiple errors stacked on top of one another. A double die combined with an off-center strike. a displaced rim, and a cracked die. A strike-through error paired with a misaligned die that gives the quarter a warped, almost haunted shape. Every time a new example appears, experts debate whether it might become the next record holder, the next million-dollar miracle. But here's the moment you need to pay attention to. This tiny detail could be the difference between a regular quarter and a coin worth $1.9 million. Look closely at the peach. Look for doubling around the edges, especially near the outline. Then examine the rim. If anything looks shifted, warped, or misaligned, you may be holding something special. Tilt the coin under a bright light. Watch how the shadows fall. A true error will reveal itself with sharp angles or raised metal where it doesn't belong. Don't forget to inspect the letters around the state outline. Some of the rarest versions show doubling in the words wisdom, justice, moderation. The mint mark itself, that little d, can also show signs of distortion that separate the common quarters from the unbelievable ones. And most importantly, trust your instincts. Every collector who found one of these priceless coins started with a feeling that something just looked different. One man's pocket change became a million-dollar miracle. Another collector's dusty jar turned into a life-changing treasure. And the next discovery could belong to someone who least expects it. Imagine holding a single quarter in your hand and realizing it could completely change your life. That's exactly what happened with the 1988 P. Washington quarter dollar, a coin that most people dismiss without a second thought, tucked away in jars, drawers, and forgotten piggy banks. One man's casual flip of pocket change became a story that stunned collectors across the country. It all started in a small, dusty coin shop tucked away in the Midwest. A retired postal worker was cleaning out his attic when he found a bundle of quarters wrapped in paper from decades ago. He had no idea that among those ordinary coins, one was hiding a secret worth millions. Dealers who first caught wind of it were speechless. How could a coin minted in 1988, a year most people barely remember, suddenly hold such incredible value? But here's where it gets even stranger. This coin carries a rare minting anomaly that only the sharpest collectors notice. The P mint mark, placed with slight irregularity, hides a tiny error in the die, something so subtle that an untrained eye wouldn't even see it. This microscopic mistake is what transforms a simple quarter into a coin that can fetch up to $1 million. Most collectors, even seasoned ones, glance past it every day. But those who recognize it know they've stumbled upon a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Collectors were shocked when the first auction hit. Bidders fought over this single coin like it was the crown jewel of American currency. What seemed like a standard Washington quarter suddenly had people shelling out six-figure offers just to have the chance to own it. And then came the final blow. It sold for a staggering price, a true million-dollar miracle for whoever had the foresight to hold on to it. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. More than a dozen similar quarters were quietly found, each with slight variations, each potentially worth hundreds of thousands, even up to $1 million. And yet, millions of people have this coin in their pockets or drawers right now, completely unaware. That tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The story of this 1988 P. Washington quarter dollar is not just about money. It's about the thrill of discovery, the joy of spotting something ordinary hiding extraordinary potential. It's about the single moment when you realize that something you overlooked for decades could suddenly transform your life. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he paid attention when most others didn't. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, scouring estate sales, thrift stores, and even vending machines. They know the secret. The mint mark tells the story, but the die error seals the fortune. It's the combination of timing, luck, and eagle-eyed attention to detail that separates the average collector from the millionaire. And while the coin is small, its story is enormous. Imagine standing in an auction room, watching this quarter change hands. The tension is electric. Bidders hold their breath as the hammer comes down. Hundreds of thousands, then close to $1 million. All for a coin that most people consider just loose change. That's the power of the 1988 P. Washington quarter dollar. One glance at its tiny markings could turn an ordinary collection into an extraordinary fortune. First, check the P mint mark closely. Look for slight irregularities, subtle variations in placement, and any tiny anomalies around the date. Examine the edges for unusual doubling or small die cracks. These often signal the error that makes the coin valuable. And don't be fooled by wear. Even circulated coins can hold immense value if these details are present. Most people pass them over because they look ordinary at first glance. But the truth is hidden in plain sight. One woman discovered her quarter tucked in a jar labeled "Savings for Snacks." She brought it to a local dealer for a casual appraisal, not realizing it could change her life. When the dealer recognized the error, she nearly fainted. That single coin, long ignored, was suddenly a ticket to a new reality. This is the kind of story that repeats itself over and over. Quiet moments of discovery leading to life-changing windfalls. Collectors who chase these coins don't just buy them for money. They buy them for the thrill, for the chance to be part of a rare, secret world that few people ever see. And the 1988 P. Washington quarter dollar is the ultimate prize in that world. It's a reminder that treasures exist in the most unexpected places, that ordinary moments can conceal extraordinary potential, and that sometimes patience and attention to detail pay off in ways you could never imagine. So the next time you reach for a quarter at the grocery store, don't just glance at it. Study it. Look at the mint mark. Inspect the die. One small detail could reveal the difference between pocket change and $1 million coin. The 1988 P. Washington quarter dollar isn't just currency. It's a symbol of hope, of possibility, and of the hidden fortunes waiting for the observant, the patient, and the curious. Collectors continue to scour the country, sharing stories, tips, and discoveries, all pointing back to this coin. Every new find sends ripples through the coin world, reminding everyone that fortune favors the vigilant. The excitement, the suspense, and the drama of each discovery are what make these coins legendary. And now, it's your turn. Examine your collection. Search your drawers. Look in that jar of forgotten quarters. Study the mint mark, inspect the edges, and keep your eyes open for tiny anomalies. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a coin in your hand, thinking it's just another piece of pocket change, and then discovering it's the key to a life-changing fortune. That's exactly what happened with the 1978 D. Washington quarter, a coin that has collectors across the country buzzing, and one man's ordinary wallet find turned into a story worth telling for generations. It all started in a small town, in a cluttered coin shop where dusty boxes of forgotten quarters waited for someone to notice them. The 1978 D quarter wasn't supposed to be special. It was just another coin in the mint's massive 1978 production. But a tiny, almost invisible minting error transformed this ordinary quarter into $1 million miracle. And the shocking part? Most people wouldn't even notice it if it was sitting right in front of them. Collectors were shocked when the first 1978 D. Washington quarter with this error hit the market. One auction, in particular, made headlines when a single coin sold for nearly $1 million. Dealers who had been in the business for decades could hardly believe their eyes. It wasn't just the value, it was the story behind it. A forgotten misstep at the Denver Mint, a misaligned die that struck a limited number of coins, created a subtle but unmistakable flaw. And that tiny imperfection is what makes this coin priceless to the right buyer. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread quickly. Private collectors began combing through rolls of quarters, searching desperately for their own piece of this hidden treasure. Suddenly, pocket change was no longer just loose change. It was a potential ticket to wealth beyond imagination. And yet, despite the frenzy, only a few of these coins exist in perfect, collectible condition. One man's casual weekend hunt led to a discovery that made him the envy of collectors nationwide. His ordinary 1978 D quarter was verified to be worth over $1 million. The emotional reaction to this coin is something you have to see to believe. Eyes widening, hands trembling, collectors realized they were holding a piece of history. A coin that had survived decades, tucked away in circulation, unnoticed by everyone except those lucky enough to identify it. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these quarters, and the stories of people finding them in their change are pouring in like a tidal wave. One woman discovered hers in a box of old family coins, forgotten in her attic for 30 years. She held it in her hand, thinking it was just a keepsake, only to learn it could fetch $1 million at auction. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The 1978 D quarter has a subtle double strike or a slight misalignment that can appear on the lettering or the rim. Most quarters show normal wear, but if you hold the coin just right, you'll notice the unique anomaly. The mint mark itself might be slightly off-center, or the design may appear layered or doubled. It's almost like a secret signature from the mint, a clue that this coin is part of a very exclusive, incredibly rare group. But the story doesn't end there. In a twist that seems almost unbelievable, some coins were found in the strangest of places. Loose in jars, forgotten in couch cushions, hidden in old cash boxes. One retired schoolteacher discovered a roll of quarters in a drawer she hadn't opened in years. When she had them appraised, she couldn't believe it. Among them was the 1978 D quarter that would change her life. Her pocket change had transformed into a $1 million miracle. Collectors are particularly fascinated because this coin challenges everything we think we know about the value of everyday money. How can a coin you pass by in a vending machine be worth more than a house? It's the mystery of minting errors, the rarity of perfection, and the thrill of the hunt that make this coin legendary. People are spending hours studying photographs, examining tiny scratches and imperfections, hoping to find the telltale signs of the 1978 D error, and yet, even with all this attention, the coin remains elusive. Many people still miss the subtle differences, dismissing them as ordinary wear. But experts warn, the difference between a common 1978 D quarter and one worth $1 million can be nearly invisible to the untrained eye. It's in the details, the angle of the die strike, the spacing of the lettering, even the way the light reflects off the coin's surface. That's why authentication is critical, and why the few coins that have been verified are considered treasures beyond measure. Imagine the excitement of holding such a coin in your hand. The weight of history, the thrill of discovery, and the possibility of a life-changing fortune all wrapped into a small, unassuming piece of metal. That's what makes this 1978 D Washington quarter more than a coin. It's a story, a mystery, and for one lucky owner, it's a $1 million reality. Now, here's how you can identify your own 1978 D quarter that might be hiding in your pocket change. Look closely at the D mint mark. Is it perfectly centered or slightly off? Examine the lettering and the rim for any doubling or misalignment. Pay attention to subtle variations in the surface that look like layers or faint shadows. These are the clues that separate an ordinary quarter from one of the rarest coins in existence. And remember, even small scratches or discoloration can affect value, so handle each coin with care. Dealers are already combing through collections, and the market is heating up. People who once scoffed at loose change are now checking every pocket, every jar, every drawer. One man's weekend hunt became a news story when he discovered not just one, but two rare 1978 D quarters in circulation. His ordinary life was forever changed, all because he recognized what others overlooked. This coin almost ended up overlooked, lost in the shuffle of ordinary money. But now, it has captured the attention of collectors nationwide. The stories of discovery, the auctions, the disbelief, it all points to one truth. This coin is extraordinary. And you might be holding the key right now. Without even knowing it.so, check your change. Examine every 1978 D Washington quarter with care. Look for those tiny, almost invisible minting anomalies. Study the mint mark, the lettering, the rim. These are not just coins. They are hidden treasures, potential $1 million finds. And in the world of rare coin collecting, the right coin at the right moment can change everything. Every 1978 D Washington quarter isn't valuable, but the few that show the misalignment or die error are priceless. They are the ones that can transform ordinary pocket change into extraordinary wealth. Imagine discovering one in a forgotten drawer or jar, knowing that you now possess something the world is scrambling to acquire. That feeling, that thrill, is the heart of coin collecting, and it's why the 1978 D quarter will be remembered for generations. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Don't let it slip past you. Examine your coins, study the details, and uncover the hidden fortune that's been waiting for decades, quietly, patiently, for someone like you to notice.